Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome inside the Fan Cave. Bob Pompeani with you until 11 o'clock tonight. Join us at 412-575-2600. That is the number to call here and air your opinions on Pittsburgh sports or anything else you want to talk about in the world of sports. And there's been a lot going on. By the way, those of you who watched Colorado State and Maryland, Derek Queen hit a beautiful shot to win it for Maryland at the buzzer. But when I saw that, I thought he traveled. I don't know what you guys think. If you've watched that play over and over, you tell me if he traveled or not. And if you think he did, call and let's discuss it, because it's one of the things that they seem to have not used the whistle on anymore, really, especially in NBA, but now even in college basketball. It's not called all that often, traveling. When you see it, it's pretty egregious. I thought this was right on the borderline, but they weren't going to call it given the nature of the game. He had to hit the shot, and he did, so give him a credit. The freshman out of Maryland advances them to the Sweet 16 for the first time in a long time. We're also talking about the ongoing saga that is Aaron Rodgers. The fact that he was in town last week said something, and I thought for sure he would leave with a contract in hand, but that did not happen. He came in for 6 hours. The offer that they made to him was last week, so that offer is still there. It's on the table. He wanted to come in and get to know the team, the position they're in, talk face-to-face, and he did with everyone. And that's unusual because the Steelers, in order to facilitate this, they had to skip Michigan's pro day, and they normally don't do that. They want to be at all these pro days because they could draft some of these big defensive tackles that they have or what have you. But he left with no contract. So what does that mean? Is there a time frame? Join us tonight. We're on a little bit late because of all the basketball today. It's the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. It'll be on after midnight tonight. So we'll be on late, but it's worth staying up for. We have a good conversation with Jason Mackey, Ray Fittipaldo, and Jeff Hathorn. That's tonight after midnight on KDKA. In the meantime, this is your opportunity to talk. We'll get into the Steelers situation with regard to their quarterback, and it looks like Rodgers will end up here. That seems to be their preference. If it doesn't, what is plan B or C at this point? Because Mason Rudolph has already signed, and that was a good thing that they needed somebody to get here. They are familiar with him. They didn't bring him back last year. They did now, and he could end up being your starter. We'll talk about that. We'll also get into George Pickens' future, what the Steelers do in the draft. Anything there is fine by me. So call 412-575-2600. Also, the Penguins played a really good game tonight, especially in the first period, but they couldn't hold off Florida after building a 3-1 lead, and they end up losing that game in a shootout. Some good chances back and forth in overtime, but nobody could score. And then Alexander Barkov got the only goal in the shootout as Crosby, Raquel, and Rust all denied by Sergei Bobrovsky. Rust came very close to putting it in. It got kind of wedged between the skate and the goalpost. And I thought it was in. It wasn't in, so they end up losing this one 4-3. But it makes you wonder, the Penguins still have the high-end talent that can deliver, and it did tonight. They were 2 for 3 on the power play. And I know that Kyle Dubas still wants to try to win now with this group intact, but at the same time, he is trying to rebuild as he does this. So what do you think's next for them? They kept Raquel at the deadline. What should they do in the offseason here in terms of still trying to build a team that can get into the playoffs? Because sometimes the way they play makes me think they can be a legitimate playoff team, and then they fall apart in the same game, and that's the problem. It's very erratic and very inconsistent. 412-575-2600 is the number to call. Love to hear from you. We'll take those calls when we come back. You are watching the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. We're live 7 nights a week on KDKA+, and on most nights, 93.7 The Fan. All right, this is our tweet of the night brought to you by Xfinity Mobile, and it comes from public relations of the NHL. At 37, Sidney Crosby is still racking up multi-point games for the Penguins. He now has 20 of them this season. He also is very close to setting the all-time NHL record for most consecutive years with at least 1 point per game, and that would be 20, eclipsing what Wayne Gretzky had back in the day. So very interesting what Crosby's been able to do. And still at age 37, you're number 20. He's putting up the kind of numbers that make you think he still can do this for a few more years at a very high level. 25 goals now. He seems to just be making plays. He's a good 200-foot hockey player, one of the best in the game's ever seen. We have this tweet here from Tam Mersek, And Tam says this about Sidney Crosby. I love Crosby, and I think he's one of the greatest of all time. But this consecutive season's averaging a point a game stat seems really forced. It's similar to Mike Tomlin's non-losing season stat. I disagree with that, Tam. I think absolutely that's incorrect. I think this is a testament to his willingness to continue to learn and be part of himself. As a hockey player, he's still good at distributing the puck. He's good at back checking. He doesn't give up on plays. To me, he's the best 200-foot player in the game. All right, let's get back to the phone calls now at 412-575-2600. We'll begin with Russ in the Cayman Islands, of all places. Russ, how you doing tonight?
Hey, man. This is Russ calling from beautiful Cayman Islands where the sun is shining, the waves be crashing, and the sports bars and sports fans be everywhere, man. I can't believe I'm talking to the great Bob Pompeani. You're a legend down here in the sports field.
Well, I'm glad that you're listening and watching. I'm sure you have a question too, Russ. What's up? What do you want to talk about?
First, I just want to say you're so famous down here that they named a fish after you. They just spell it wrong down here. I don't know. Will the quarterback choice really even matter if the offensive line doesn't keep up their end of the bargain?
Well, that's a good question, Russ. And I wonder what that fish is that you named after me. But
they spell it wrong. They call it the pompano.
The pompano. That's a good. I understand that's a great fish. Anyway, to answer your question, no. The answer would be no, because if your offensive line, especially with Aaron Rodgers, now if it's somebody like Justin Fields, it would have been a different situation. But quite frankly, with Rodgers, if it collapses, he's a sitting duck. He just does not have the athletic ability to move as he once did. What he has is the arm strength. He has the zip on the ball still. If you give him time, he gets rid of the ball fairly quickly, so that should help his cause. But when you're going those deep go patterns, you need a little bit of time. So they're going to put Broderick Jones left tackle. They're going to go right tackle with Troy Fautanu, and they better hope those guys hold up. Last year it wasn't the case. Dan Moore, even though he got paid in free agency $82 million by the Titans, he gave up the most sacks of any left tackle in the game in the NFL. And on the right side, Broderick Jones had his problems there with 12, I think, sacks allowed. That can't happen this year, especially if it's Aaron Rodgers. But thanks, man. Appreciate the call from the Cayman Islands. Let's go to Bill in Pittsburgh, who joins us right now. Hey, Bill, how are you?
Hey, Bob. As far as Aaron Rodgers goes, I really don't think we need him. I think it would be a bad deal to get him. I think we should just go in a draft. And I think we should get rid of George Pickens and trade up and get that Matthew Golden from Texas. The guy runs a 4.29 40-yard dash. And I think we should go in another direction. I'm sure we'll find someone in the draft as far as the quarterback goes. And Aaron Rodgers would be nothing but a sideshow here. You know it. I know it. We don't need him. No, thank you. Save your money. Get some more talent.
I will say this, Bill, though. Last year, when at the end of the season, and I know he was playing some bad defensive teams, he did have 18 touchdowns, 4 picks, and he still can throw the ball. Really, if you give him time, he's a good decision maker. My interesting point of this would be how much leeway will Mike Tomlin and the coaching staff give him? I mean, he's a Hall of Famer, for goodness sakes, and he should be able to do whatever he wants at the line of scrimmage. But they have been kind of hesitant allowing that for most quarterbacks here, and that would include Russell Wilson, I believe. So that's got to be worked out. Maybe that's part of his visit when he came here, but I still think he can zing it down the field if he gets properly protected. But to your point, they will draft somebody. Even if they draft someone mid-rounds this year, they will draft again next year. I think that quarterback position is too big to ignore, and you better make sure you get it right this time for sure. At 575-2600. I have too many numbers on my mind. Let's go out to Len in Ligonier. Len in Ligonier. That sounds interesting. How are you, Len?
Good, sir. Thank you for taking the call. Hey, just a quick comment, actually. If they sign Rodgers, I probably will not watch a Steeler game.
Yes, you will. You know you will.
No, I will not, because Aaron Rodgers, he's a drama queen. And let's just face facts. That's what he is. And
but he still can throw the ball, Len.
Yeah, he can throw the ball, but the issue here is he's such a drama queen. What's going to happen is that anytime he makes a mistake, he's going to blame somebody else. That's my comment.
Could be true. Yeah, and he did it last year with Mike Williams before Mike Williams was traded from the Jets to the Steelers. So, and he's not he is not prone to take a lot of the blame himself. He will distribute it. And that could be an issue. But again, they need, and one thing about the Steelers, I'll say this, I don't believe they believe in bridge years. A lot of people want to use that term. They're not looking at it this way. They believe, right or wrong, that they can win in the playoffs, but they have obviously a lack of quarterback options here at this point. That has to be rectified. And if it is Rodgers, if they do protect him properly, I still think there's enough in his game that can make this aerial game much better than it's been, I think. If the offensive line does not perform at the level you need it to, then that could be a whole different story. So it's something to watch. If they don't get him, I wonder what their plan B would be. It would have to be Rudolph, Joe Flacco, and draft somebody, I suppose, because there's not many options out there after Jameis Winston goes to the Giants. And with him in New York, they still could bring in Rodgers. I know they're interested, or even Russell Wilson, who's still looking for a job as well. So this thing is still not settled. 412-575-2600. We go out to Jim in Peters Township. Hello, Jim. How are you tonight?
Hey, how you doing, Bob? Hey,
good, thanks.
The way I look at it, this season is done for the Steelers right now. Here's why. If they were smart, they have race. They take Mason, make him the starter, but they draft that kid from Alabama, put the money in the offensive line. That way you can defend the quarterback. Rodgers is going to be a sitting duck, and they're not going to win with him because they're not going to protect him. But if you put the money in the line, you have a
my
better
question
shot.
to you would be, how much more do they have to put in the offensive line? They have 2 number 1 picks back-to-back years offensive tackles. They chose Zach Frazier in the second round. They put a lot of draft equity in offensive line, and they still need a swing tackle because right now they really don't have one.
Well, well, draft someone there because that line, the whole thing starts there. Now, Mason Rudolph, 2 years ago at the end, he looked good throwing them long, and I kind of think that if they got their Alabama quarterback, that the one they took out to dinner, let him sit in the background, until next year, and let Mason. They're not going to do any. They're not going to win with either of them. Is what I'm saying. They don't have enough players.
Well, I think they need help also on before they do more with the offensive line. I think they owe it to themselves to really fortify their defensive line and cornerback. Even though Darius Slay is in town, he's 34. It sort of reminds me of the Patrick Peterson acquisition. Certainly a tremendous player over the years, but how much does he have left? You still need some depth there as well. You need wide receiver help, especially if you know that you're not going to sign George Pickens long term. This would be a draft to do it because they're pretty deep there. So I think offensive line, they've devoted enough draft equity to it over the last few years. They may go out and sign somebody else, but they're not going to draft anyone early on, at least I don't think, in the offensive line. Back to the lines we go, and that would be Jay in Pittsburgh. Hello, Jay. How are you?
Hey, Bob. How you doing today?
Good. What's up, man?
I got one comment about Pitt basketball, but before that, I want to say, I got travel. Second,
Yeah, you did.
I want to talk about Pitt because do you think? We got to get that New York connection going again because the players that's playing at Pitt, man, they can't rebound. They play zero defense. And I don't think Jeff Capel is a great coach. I want to hear what you got to say.
Well,
about that.
I think they did. They fell apart for those reasons you said at the end. But Capel's not going anywhere given his contract, and the transfer portal opens tomorrow. So it will be very interesting to see how many guys leave, what they can do to bring people in, how much money they have to spend on it. It is not an easy situation right now for a program like Pitt, quite frankly, and they need more money thrown into it. You see John Calipari, he's got that Purdue chicken guy in his back pocket, as well as other people out there in Arkansas. They throw around a lot of money, and they're happy to have him there, and they're happy to have a winning team that's going to the Sweet 16. Kathy in Pittsburgh is next up. She joins us right here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Go ahead, Kathy. Kathy.
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead. You're on. Kathy.
Yes, hi. I feel that basically, I think Russell Wilson will be a great quarterback for Pittsburgh Steelers. Hello?
Well, he wasn't last year, and that's why he still hasn't gotten a job from anyone. And quite frankly, it would be a last resort at this point based on, the fact that they haven't even offered him anything. And they've gone through a lot of different scenarios, and he's not been one of them. He came on strong after a slow start. That first game he got in, the first half against the Jets was not good, but after that he played well. until the latter part of the schedule. That's when the offensive line at times made it difficult. He took sacks. He threw the ball away a lot. And he still has something left. I'm not going to disagree with you there. When you say great quarterback left, I don't think that's accurate. Mark in Coriopolis. Hey, Mark, how are you tonight?
How you doing?
Good.
Getting to the Penguins. It's been a while since they've been to the playoffs, and I think that began when Mario sold the majority share.
Well, first of all, that's true to some extent. But they also had Ron Hextall as the GM, and Mario and Ron Burkle were responsible for that hire, as well as who's the guy who came in to help him out? Now the name's escaping me. Burke. So those two guys were there, and you know, this is not necessarily something that should surprise anyone following Penguins hockey, in my view. When you do what Jim Rutherford did when he was here, trying to win and trading #1 picks to try to bring in talent to help them win, and they did. They won back-to-back Stanley Cups. They were in position to maybe do it 3 years in a row before they got ousted. That's unprecedented. You really don't see that very often these days. And they mortgaged the future to try to help the present. When you take out future loans and you have to pay them back, it's not easy. And it's the same is true in sports. They knew one day this was going to happen, where they ran out of stuff in their own farm system. They don't have enough down there right now. They're trying to replenish it, and this is where you are. So we'll see how it goes in the next couple of years, but they still have the top-end talent, and they're hoping that drags them to an opportunity next year in the playoffs. We'll take a break, come back with more right here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call, 7 nights a week on KDKA+. All right, we're back with more right here on the Sports Call. Let's go to Michael in Beaver Falls, who will be our last caller tonight. Hello, Michael.
Well, good evening, Bob. Hey, I love that tie. You look good, boss.
Thank you, sir. Heinz Healy's, baby, downtown Pittsburgh.
There we go. Two topics here that I'd like to speak of, if I may. First of all, March Madness, very, very entertaining. It seems to me like when the girls shoot, they usually make them, and the guys are always missing. But anyway, going back to Steelers, no Rodgers, no Wilson. But anyway, did you say that they signed Rudolph?
Yeah,
I was wondering.
Yeah, they did. They signed him to a 2-year deal for $8 million, $8.5 million, whatever. That's really backup money in the NFL. So again, I think they're still looking to try to get Rodgers. If they don't, then you can elevate Rudolph and bring in a guy like Joe Flacco and draft somebody, I suppose. That's going to do it for us. Thank you for joining us tonight. We'll do it again tomorrow night, 10:35. It's another edition of the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call Showdown after midnight tonight.